This regular season is going to be no joke for the Georgia Bulldogs, winners of two of the last three national championships. Georgia's got a massive slog in front of them. Road trips to Mississippi, Alabama, as well as a big one at Texas. They also travel to Lexington, Kentucky, which a lot of people feel like a lot of people on this segment think is going to be a very difficult game. Dean Legge, Matt DeBerry, Ryan Curley, everybody dropping in now. Matt, Roman Harper had this to say about Georgia's schedule. He said, Roman Harper, former Alabama player and Saints player, said, they play everybody.
Just about, right? Going to Texas is going to be a fun, interesting matchup. Going to Alabama at night, crazy atmosphere. And I've said this before, Georgia's the team now that everyone has circled. Ole Miss, of course, they're looking forward to Mississippi State. I'm not exactly sure who else they have on the schedule. Dean, I know you probably have a better idea than me, but that Georgia game is circled. Florida has the Georgia game circled. Alabama, Texas, everyone's looking forward to that game. Even Clemson, they're starting off the season with a good, probably not great Clemson team. They definitely have some weaknesses in my mind, but they're coming out the gates, Ryan, with a solid, formidable opponent. Maybe not formidable. I don't have the widest vocabulary. Maybe it's not formidable, but a respectable team in Clemson. And then you get going there, Alabama, then Kentucky, then Texas, I believe, in late September. You got Florida, then Ole Miss right after that. And then at the end of the year, Georgia Tech, Brent Key had a lot to say about his quarterback, thinking Haynes King is the best quarterback in the ACC. They gave Georgia a cute little fight last year. So that may not be the giant slam dunk 30-point win that we've seen in the past. But, yeah, this is a tough one, but it's going to be really fun.
Yeah, I think good, not great. And the first thing you said about Clemson is probably the way I would put it as well. We talked about it in Dallas last week. It's like 3 mini seasons in one. Each month has its own challenges. You could separate them all and just say, wow, that stretch of football is really tough. You put it all together and you say, wow, that entire schedule is really tough. Still have best odds to win almost everything. It tells you what people feel about them. And I think that it speaks even louder in a season like this, how most experts think Georgia's going to be there in the end. They've got a really tough road. We could be looking back on this in January, and I think we probably said this before, is the greatest Georgia football season of all time.
Oh, you want to expand on that? Go ahead.
If maybe one loss, right? Because I think when you look at in recent history, obviously 2021 is what people are going to have in their hearts the most, whether you think the 21 or 22 team was better. But the journey that this team would take to win a national championship before the season even starts, we just know that it's going to be more difficult on paper than it was in 21 and 22. It just is.
On paper for sure. And when you look, Matt was asking about or sort of referencing the Rebels. The beginning is pretty manageable for them. Then they pick it up a little bit. They play Kentucky at home, and then they go to Carolina. They should probably win both those games if they're as good as everybody thinks. But, after that, they have two really big games. That's what I would say is it after that, Matt. You've got LSU on the road. That's going to be a really hard game for Ole Miss to win. And then you host Ole Miss. Excuse me. You host Oklahoma. You go to Fayetteville. You host Georgia. You go to the Swamp, and then you host State. They should win all of those games but one. And so, this is going to get sidetracked on Ole Miss. Look, Roman Harper. Here's who everybody else has got in the league. Just really quickly, as fast as I can go. Ole Miss, the three toughest games. Bama, they've got Georgia. I'm going to say Missouri, to be honest with you, and then LSU on the road. I'm going to skip some teams that kind of don't matter. LSU, they got it. They host Ole Miss. They play at A&M. They host Alabama. And they host Oklahoma at the end of the season, but they should manage that game. Missouri, they have a cakewalk, is what I would call it. They play A&M on the road. That's going to be challenging. They go to Alabama. So those two are not great. Every other game they play is either at home or they should win it. Tennessee, I will include because there's been plenty of discussion of the Vols, although not quite maybe in the same stratosphere as some of these folks. Tennessee, of course, they've got Georgia and Alabama as they always do. They host the Gators. They have a manageable schedule. In my opinion, they got to go to Oklahoma, so that's not great. Texas and Mizzou have the best schedules. Texas, the worst part, Matt, is they host Georgia and Oklahoma. Excuse me, they play Oklahoma and Georgia in back-to-backs, one in Dallas, one in Austin. But although the end is tricky, I'm talking about just league schedule because they play at Michigan. They've got Arkansas, Kentucky, and A&M to close. That's a tough schedule to close with. 2 of those 3 are on the road. And then A&M will know immediately. They should beat Notre Dame. They go to the Swamp. They play Arkansas and Arlington, which they seem to constantly win. They play Mizzou at home. They play LSU at home. And then they close at Auburn and with Texas. I mean, yeah, Georgia plays everybody, as Roman Harper said. But, like, Texas plays Michigan. Alabama's playing Wisconsin. Yeah, Georgia's playing Clemson. The toughest game non-conference is Texas at Michigan. How do you see this landscape? Everybody seems to be playing everybody, Matt.
Yeah, a lot of great games, but if I'm Georgia or, us, I mean, are Georgia's the 3 best teams they'll play, are they all on the road? Is
Yes.
it Texas, Alabama, and Ole Miss? Their 3 toughest teams that they play this year are all on the road. You could absolutely say that. Maybe Tennessee is better than people think. I think Auburn's going to take a step in the right direction. And thankfully they got those games at home because it seems like they're playing a lot of tough road games. You got Clemson and Atlanta, but, there are not a lot of teams they can sleepwalk through. They got the couple cupcakes, I think one early in the year, one right before Georgia Tech, but there's no Vanderbilt. They do have Mississippi State, but, I mean, it's still – you need to bring it. Because you don't want to trip up on one of these games, right? Everyone looks for the slip-up game. And maybe that's in Oxford after they play Florida and Jacksonville. But it's going to be tough, like y'all have said, I think all offseason. It's going to be tough to run the table. Where does that loss come from? Could they get 2 losses? That wouldn't be the most shocking thing. They're going to be in the playoff even with 2 losses. But they're going to have to earn it this year. There's no doubt about it.
So, I mean, half their schedule is going to end up being ranked when they play them. That's just kind of the way you have to look at this. Clemson's going to be ranked. Kentucky potentially could be ranked by week 3. Alabama's going to be ranked in the top 10. Texas is going to be ranked in the top 10. Ole Miss is going to be ranked. Tennessee's going to be ranked. If Tech improves, are they on the bubble of being a top 25 team? It's wire to wire, and they've got the cupcakes in it. But this is you got to be locked in the entire time. You can't lock out at all in this type of schedule. But they're better. From what we know about these teams, I think that they're the best team in the country, probably. I mean, I feel like I've been saying that over and over, but it's turned into an Ohio State-Georgia conversation, and then you look at the SEC. What was the percentage, the breakdown of the vote? I mean, it was pretty heavily favored towards Georgia last week, right?
Place, it was significantly higher.
It was significant. I mean, that tells you the story of how everyone feels about these teams. The way that they're replacing players, right? All of these top end teams have to replace a lot of talent. Georgia does too, but it just feels like they're in the best position to where that's not going to hurt them as much on a yearly basis.
Well, Matt, we don't know. I mean, there's so much we don't know about a lot of these teams. We're going to talk about this in the future, but my pause about Ohio State is quarterback. We just don't. I mean, Carson Beck's got stuff to prove too. Jalen Milroe, everybody kind of does. But Ohio State, I think that's an even perhaps trickier conversation with them, bringing a guy in.
Yeah, I don't think he's as talented as Carson Beck, but like Carson Beck, he's got a really impressive offensive line in front of him. He's got receivers all over the place. He probably has the best stable of running backs in the country. So he's got the pieces and he's got the weapons. He just can't turn the ball over. You could say that the same thing for Carson Beck. We say with every Georgia quarterback, right? Use your weapons, take care of the ball, go to the right place, throw it where it needs to be. You don't have to do anything special. Just run the offense. Don't turn the ball over. And in a lot of situations, we're seeing quarterbacks get the ball out quickly. Screen game, short passing game. Get it to your receivers and occasionally push the ball vertically down the field when you need to, or when you scheme it open like that. But at the end of the day, if that guy, Will Howard, does his job and feeds his running backs the ball and gets it to all his weapons on the outside, they're going to score a lot of points. but they might be in a position where he has to win a game with his arm. Luckily, he's got receivers to throw to, but he is going to have to make the throws, whether it's against Oregon or Michigan down the stretch at some point in the playoffs. They're going to need him to be a legitimate quarterback who can put the team on his back. We've seen Carson Beck do that. I'm not sure if he can do that. Maybe I'm wrong.
Make sure that you're taking advantage of our link to the newsletter down below. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.